Welcome everyone. It's another short but sweet, perfect day to do a little half an hour sort of blast, and the big focus for today is going to be looking at the back. So the back, like all muscles, needs to be stretched, but it also needs to be strengthened. So sometimes, even though we're feeling a little bit stiff and a little bit tight, yes, you can feel the need or the desire to need to stretch it, absolutely, big tick. But often what happens is that backs can be tired because they're not strong. We might be rounding forward, and yes, it's all really tight through the body, but why are we rounding forward? Perhaps because the back muscles are literally not strong enough to hold us upright into a posturally correct position. So we're going to look at stretching the back, but also strengthening the back today. Let's take a moment just to do a little bit of breath work, find ourselves centered on our mat, and I'm going to start us then pretty quickly onto some articulation, some moving into the spine. Come with me as we just softly close the eyes, and as we invite the breath in, nice and slow, noticing that breath sinking right down into the bottom of our lungs. And ever so gradually filling the lungs up to the top. So full breath coming in, and full complete breath emptying from those lungs. Bringing the lungs out like they were sponges, emptying them all. And just one more breath together. Just getting the rhythm happening. As we find our way now back down towards the floor, what we'll work through here is, as I've mentioned, that very first part, some articulation of the spine. Really important that the spine learns to move through all of its, through all of its ranges, but also two, so that it moves sequentially and in an articulated kind of way. So rather than us saying in terms of the spine, big chunks of the spine rotating or big chunks of the spine lifting and lowering, getting that nice segmentation is what we're looking for here. So that's going to come with our pelvic curl as we do. We tilt the pelvis back, peel that spine up and off and away from the floor. And one full big deep breath in comes now. Let's ease down slowly on the breath out, just taking our time, not rushing through it. And see if we can hold the tailbone up for as long as we can until eventually that lumbar comes back into the floor, which it flattens. Eventually it won't, though. It'll come back into neutral, and then we roll back to the pelvis, and that's when it finds its neutral. We breathe in again, and then we exhale and we tilt the pelvis back, gradually lifting from that tailbone, pressing equally through both of the feet, peeling away. Finding that full range for one breath to come in. But then again, really mindful, sending each vertebrae one at a time. And not rushing it, taking the time to ease each of the vertebrae softly and slowly and individually back down to that. Let's just take one more. We rock back through, we find where that neutral part is. Breath comes in, breath comes out as we head back up, tilting back, peeling away slowly. Just equally pressing through both the feet, finding that slow articulated movement on the way back up. Hold it there, inhale. And then down and ease slowly, vertebrae by vertebrae, all the way back down and into the neutral. And as we stay here, widen the feet a little further than hip distance, so perhaps the edges of the mat. And here's some nice knee floats. Now this is great for the pelvis. And the part of the spine that we call the SIJ, the sacroiliac joint. the sacroiliac joint or the sacrum. The joint of the sacrum is the little chunk of vertebrae that are fused together, can get really loaded because it's pretty much the end of the chain. So it gets a lot of compression and a lot of weight put down into them. So it's nice just to ease that off and get some movement into the ligaments and a lot of connective tissue down in that lower area. So a little gentle knee float is nice here. Then knees, walk those feet back in, let's go knees to chest. A beautiful lumbar lower back stretch, particularly if we can get some of this tail lifting off the floor. And if we couldn't, my suggestion is get something like a bolster or even your mat a couple of times rolled up just to get this sort of subtle inclination of the spine, and that's what will give us this elongated sort of stretch through the lower back and all those little fine muscles that come down and attach themselves, insert themselves into the back here, just into that pelvis. Little rock here. That's nice for the muscles that run down the length of the back. And there's a whole series of muscles. Some are sort of long and skinny, the erector spinalis. Others are big, that come from the shoulder blades. It's sort of fan down. It's quite intricate, all of the muscles of the back, and I'm going to pretty much say most of them, 90% of them, all come and attach to the spine, the vertebral column. Right. And then as the knees soften and settle into the center, let's go into a deep twist. I call it a deep twist, where we have our thighs nice and tight into our bellies and we roll to one side. Doesn't matter which one you choose. All we want to make sure of here, the only sort of cues I give you is that we only go as far as we can whilst we can keep the opposite shoulder onto the floor. So if I've come over to the left and I find that my right shoulder is trying to peel away from the floor, I might put my block or even my bolster underneath, and that's not detracting from the stretch at all, but what it is doing is it's keeping you not anchored, but it also it applies a beautiful stretch across your chest, and it takes you into the true essence of what a twist really is, which means when we twist something, and if we want to wring something out, we've got an anchor point, a point that's still, and then we need to rotate away from it. In this instance, the anchor is the shoulder, the right shoulder. Now we might work through the neck muscles, again, all particularly down the run down the back of the neck, and obviously part of the cervical column of the spine, that first region of the spine. Backs love twisting. It's a nice way for them to lengthen all of the muscles. And organs love to be twisted, obviously, as well. It's a nice flushing. Roll ahead when you're ready, back to center, and we'll bring these legs. If they don't want to come together, bring one first and let the other one follow. Sometimes if the back's a little niggly, and even first thing in the morning when it's super stiff, we might find that it's tough to get those legs to come back in one, because it might put a little bit of strength into that lumbar, the lower part of the back. And here as I've gone over to my right, then I'm making sure that I keep my left shoulder on the floor this time around. Again, the look is always opposite to knees. So turn the head out the other way. Rolls slowly back to the center first. This is the safest way to come back out of that head first, because we don't want to put any damage to the cervical spine. And then the knees very gradually, they will come back in and through. Get ready to plant the feet back onto your mat, walk them long. And they're going to head out to the left-hand side now. So a little walk of the feet. This is banana around the head and shoulders. They go out to the left. Now we're lengthening all these back muscles in a curved way. Some come over the top. Let's grab hold of the wrist today. Last night we did the same pose, but we held onto the elbow. So we'll just change it up a little bit by holding onto the wrist. It can give you often a little bit more sort of lateral stretch here as well. But if it doesn't serve you, that's all right. Grab hold of the tips of the elbows if it's too strong on the shoulders. We want to reach out in a way with our right heel and we want to hold on to this right wrist. It's as though we're creating the furthest distance between the heel and the wrist as far. So we can roll that right hip back down to the floor. That's super important in this one. It keeps us very honest and allows us to truly take ourselves into lateral flexion. So in essence, what we're doing is we're working through the spine. Spine moves in lots of different directions. So this is the side bend, so lateral. This is a nice way to get over that hip too. Particularly if you can actively roll this right bottom cheek down into the floor a little bit more, even like this right outer hip, and then you're trying to roll that right outer hip towards the mat. Good. As we suddenly let go of that right wrist, and we can even bring the arms back down, walk, 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 everything through. And find your way off to the right hand side, doing the same. Legs will walk towards our right hand, shoulders head out to the right as well. It'll be holding on to the left wrist now, and reach it up over and into the ear, pulling gently onto the wrist as we make this left side nice and long. Reach out to the left heel, and remember the distance that we want to create from the heel to the wrist here. Soften the hold of the wrist. Let's bring everything back to center. Head, shoulders, wriggle your way in for me from here. Walk the feet in and go wide with the knees as you hug them. Either you can hold on to them with your hands or hook your elbows around, and this sends us into what we know as the happy baby pose. Soles of the feet send themselves up towards us, and hands come and collect the feet. And we sort of work these knees down by the side of the ribs, almost like we're trying to clear the side ribs. Hold onto the feet, press the thighs towards the floor, and then as we pull the feet towards the top end of the mat and press or drive it out through our heels, we start to notice a little bit more effort into the hamstrings, but the pull of the feet, just like knees to chest, it sends that lumbar, that lower back off the floor and offers a little more stretch into the lower part of the back. As we release any hold that we've got of the legs, it could be feet or ankles, doesn't matter. Very gradually bring the knees back into the chest here. And as we hold on to the knees, we'll use this as a means of rocking our way up into a seated pose. Or we could roll over onto the side, and as we find our way up, it's all fours, hands and knees. Just a little cat-cow. We know this is the opposite to that pelvic curl, but done in a different way. Still with the idea of getting that movement into the spine. It's always an exhale to round the back and to draw up and into the belly, and then that sort of subtle float forward and through on our inhale as we lift the chin and the tail for the back end of that kappa. So this is the working phase of the back going into extension. Here's the stretch phase, curling up into cat, that nice rounded back. And breath in. Slowly unwind and find yourself into that cow version. Then exhale to cat. We'll just do one more. And then that inhale, rounding the spine, going into that slight extension. And then back to a flat, or what I might call just like a tabletop position. So always encourage us when we've got our hands onto the floor, be it things like say down dog or opposite arm to opposite leg, not to sink into the shoulders and not to drop. So we're going to do a little exercise with that, which is basically some strengthening work and some stretching work for the back. Hands sitting underneath the shoulders. Okay, let's do the drop first. So feel yourself just not bending your elbows, but dropping down into your shoulders. And then pull your armpits away from the floor so that your back rounds. And that's what we call protraction, rounding the back. So it's almost like going into cat, the back round. So this is the stretch. And then we retract is the work. So what you should feel then is the shoulder blades are drawing inwards towards the spine. And then we protract. We lift our armpits away from the floor and we widen the back. And there's this stretch now. Okay, the shoulder blades are sort of lifted and spread and fanned out, drop down. So the arms don't bend. This is all done through the use of the scapula, the shoulder blades, and all of these back muscles with rhomboids, latissimus dorsi. Okay, let's just try one more protraction and retraction. So retracting, pulling in, or dropping down and in. So working, protraction. Separating the shoulder blades and getting width for us here. Okay, tuck those toes under, find down dog. All we had to do is unfold or unravel the legs now. Hands and feet should be in the right position. And there we go with some work. It's the working phase of the arms and the shoulders and the back here. So what happens? Shoulder blades need to sort of cinch together so that they support the spine. And then they also slide their way down towards your hips, almost like there's little pockets that they're going to find themselves into. And there's some work going into there. But it's also a stretch for the spine because it's what we call traction of the spine. Your head then pulls the spine down towards the floor. When you actively send your sit bones up towards the ceiling, then we start to notice some true length coming into the spine. So it's almost like the two ends of the spine are being held and pulled apart from one another, getting that nice sort of spaciousness between each of the vertebrae. So yes, we do start to feel it in the shoulders because obviously it's where most of our weight is being sort of drawn down towards, but it is very much about elongation of the spine. Come to plank as you inhale, and now these back muscles have to work. So remember our protraction, retraction. We're protracting here, we're pulling our armpits away from the floor to engage the back muscles. And those back muscles are supported by the belly, and that's why we always draw the navel up and in towards the spine. Breath out, return back to down dog. But stay in our down dog, but literally just twist your feet. So don't lose your nice down dog. Just spin your feet. Doesn't matter what side you spin them to, and watch that you don't collapse into the knees just yet. Okay, so nice and straight with the legs. Good. Press the mat away from you. Feel yourself pop back into the back end of your mat a little bit more. And then come back and find that swivel around to the other side. Do exactly the same. Press your mat away from you so you don't, you're not tempted to find the plank version of it. And then spin and pivot. Go back to the first side that you're on. And now give yourself a little bendy knees. Now you can bend those knees. Good, straighten them. And spin and pivot. Pivot, 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 pivot. They're straight to start off with. Good, and then we can bend them. Back to straightening the legs. Pivot. Find normal down dog before we then transition into plank. There's your inhale. Remember protraction. Armpits pulling away from the floor, that width into the back. Now spin and pivot the feet. Yeah. So they'll point to one edge, doesn't matter what side it is. A little bit of oblique work, a little bit of side belly work. Yeah. Spin and pivot. Drop them off to the other side. Come back to plank. Lower the plank when you're already down. Use those muscles and those arms to control us down. Here's some work into cobra. Breath comes in. Right, so back extension, backs work in this phase. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is use those mid-back muscles, so the muscles that sit between the shoulder blades, to stop the back from collapsing and dropping forward. So those muscles I said to us a little earlier on, often when we get that sort of rounded shoulders, when we feel like we've got the hunchback of Notre Dame, that's because those back muscles, yes, they're tired and they're overworked perhaps, or they're weak. Okay, so it's going to strengthen the muscles. Hands free if we can. Now we're not relying on the hands. These back muscles are literally what has to hold us up here. So I'm conscious I'm not trying to squeeze through my bottom, and I'm not trying to lift via my legs. So really this huge big effort of my back muscles doing this lift, this extended position. Release the hands around behind the bottom. interlock into half locust pose, where the hands then, it's called Shalabhasana, where the hands pull down towards the feet. And we should never feel this into the lower part of the back. And if you do, by any chance, keep actively pressing your pubic bone down into the floor. Okay, that's going to stop that sort of flick of the tailbone or the extension of the tailbone. So this is very much all about these upper back muscles working for us here. Good, softly place the hands back to the mat, up and back we go into our down facing dog. Send the left leg behind you into a three-legged down dog. Allow that right heel to drop down in towards the mat. Bring the left knee into the chest, look forward and step forward to that front part of the mat. We're going to call this our little low lunge here, where we drop the hips, we press back through the right heel. We want to reach the left knee, as I was going to try and glide over the left ankle. Good. Now, we're going to come up a little and bring the hands to prayer and hook the right elbow over the left knee. Remember I said how backs love going into twists and spirals. So the whole body is sort of works around the spiraling kind of concept. So hence the reason why backs do like spiraling. Okay. Now we're going to take a reverse triangle. You might, so this left leg will straighten, but you might need a block to support the hand. I know I do. Otherwise I know what I'll end up doing is loading unnecessarily into this left hamstring. Squeeze the left heel into the center of the mat and keep thinking about how much back love rotating, spiraling. Breathe out, soften back into the left knee, send the left hand back down onto the block, plant the right foot, and then we'll spiral and unfold the other way into what we know as our side angle pose here. Continue, take triangle from here. Once again, we're squeezing that left heel into the center of the mat. And we're now going into this, and we're unraveling this spine and opening it up towards the ceiling. Then breathe out, bring the hands back either side of the left foot. So you might want to bring your second block in, I'm happy to. Particularly if you're practicing with me first thing this morning, and these little legs and body is naturally quite stiff. And the chest drops down towards the thigh. Now to work the back in this capacity, we come up a little higher so that the back is more parallel towards the ceiling. We anchor down through the feet. So front foot and back foot. And then we release the arms. Now you could think, you know what, maybe I'm going to release my front, like one arm first, and that's okay. Or you can go both together. But this reaching out of their arms, you know, we need to anchor into those back muscles, slide the shoulder blades down the back so that we can keep the back parallel towards the ceiling. Breathe out, bend into the knees, step it back. We're going to find our down dog here. Maybe a little walk out. I know it was about the back, this, but yes, these legs do need to work for us. Good. Equally draw those two heels down to the floor. Now it's about the right leg into three-legged down dog, so send it up and back. And bring it into the chest. And we've got that low lunge coming to support us again. First up. We'll drop hips. Press back through our left heel and let that weight hang over that right knee. Our twist goes to the right hand side, so hands into prayer. Hook the left elbow over the right knee. And use that, I guess, the resistance between arm and leg to really deepen into this twist. So my legs pressing into my arms pressing in around. I go a little bit more. Good. As we open up, let's split those arms here. So right arm will go up, left arm will go down. Slowly we unravel into the reverse triangle. My left hand comes on the inside of the leg and I gradually open up the right leg. You keep squeezing that right heel into the center of the mat. And feel that sort of spiraling effect of the ribs bend into the leg. Good. And come back down as we open up the other way. Left arm opens up and the right arm stays down. So we're just letting this spine spiral around itself. Breathe out, both hands find their way onto either the floor or the blocks. Let's come and straighten out that right leg. Drop the chest down in towards the thigh. And if we're going to add these arms, we need to Keep that strength and groundedness through the feet, so press down through that front right foot, square up the hips. Perhaps sort of get a little taster for it by reaching the right arm out. And then the left arm, slide the shoulder blades down the back, feel strong in the feet and the arms. And then breathe out, release the hands down. We're back into that down dog. Step, walk the feet out. Both heels equally weight down towards the floor. One plank when you're ready. Either knees or one solid line for the plank lower. Cobra on the inhale. This is your work. Hands around behind the spine. And we went into half locust, which is just this, where the upper body lift. But full locust brings the legs back together. And then we add the legs lifting as well. So this brings the lower back into the equation now. So there's a little bit of strength required into these lumbar muscles, things like that quadratus lumborum, the big stabilizing muscle there, and also these nice big back muscles. Breathe out softly, lower down towards the floor. Hands come underneath our forehead. Bend the knees, make them wide. Here's our little knee floats again, going side to side. And again, you can feel the relief that it gives, this pause that it gives to the lower part of the back. Let the legs rest into the centre. Wheel them back into they're parallel to one another, back down onto the mat. And we're going to take one last little working aspect. I'm going to wiggle down my mat so I give myself enough room. Arms will go long. And head rests down onto the floor. And we often do this opposite arm and opposite leg movement on all fours. And we'll do it prone, lying on our mat. Leave the left hand onto the floor, but just raise the right arm up. And then lift the left leg up. And lower both down. And then do the same on the other side, left arm, right leg. Exhale, come down, other side, inhale. Exhale down, inhale, lift, and exhale to lower. And then if you want to add the upper body, let your chest come off the floor a little bit as well. Remember pubic bone pressing down into the floor to keep neutral in the pelvis. And when that left arm, the right leg left and lower, hold it here. Let's see if we can get both arms and both legs off the floor. So don't yank them up. Gradually draw the belly in away from the mat, and it's like you're hovering, it's like you're floating. Sometimes we call this Superman. We should call it Superwoman, super person. Bring the hands underneath the forehead only. And down we go. Let's go to the windscreen wipers again. Nice. And as those legs rest back and center, feet together. Hands come by our sides. Let's find wide-legged childs. A nice big stretch into that lower back. It's nice doing wide leg because your belly can float down in between and you can have a little sort of really easy peasy rest here. So bum and heels wriggle together. And just start to slow the breath down. Using the breath in, walk the hands in. Come on up gradually. And hands to the prayer. There you go. Strengthen the back. Little quick fix for the backs. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Take care. And if you're with me tomorrow, we have our very last masterclass, which will be a really nice way to finish off the month of October. It is a yin yang Yeah, so a little bit of everything. Best of both worlds. Take care, everyone. May the sun shine for us today.